Evil dies tonight!
Evil dies tonight!
Evil dies tonight! Evil dies tonight! Evil dies
tonight! Yeah, there's the thumping upstairs.
Okay.
There's Big John, there's something in the house. And we are back. Welcome to Podcast Part 3, the Part 3 podcast. I am Sam, he is Will, and this is the third part of the Part 3 podcast, and it's a doozy. We're finally there. We're going to talk about Halloween Kills.
Evil dies tonight.
I took a tally. I watched it again last night. I took a tally. I may have missed some of the crowd shouting it, but they said it at least 23 times.
Oh, man. 23.
At least, it's a 2 hour and it's not a short movie. It's a 2.5 hour movie. And it's 23 times. It's like Will, this movie.
Yeah.
What? Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we have this podcast. Talk about this kind of Part 3. It's what happened?
Well, I don't know where to begin. I mean, I've said on, as we've been going through these Halloween movies, I've said my feelings about the 2018 movie, which is, I think it's okay. It's fine. It feels sort of superfluous. And maybe a little pretentious, but there are aspects of it that I like, but on the whole, I don't love the 2018 movie. And this sort of seems like an extension of that, but like everything wrong with the other Halloween sequels too, kind of wrapped in a bow.
Yeah, watching it this time, I was like, this movie makes all the classic cliche horror movie mistakes. Like, this movie does everything, they're joking about in Scream. And Scream was 25 years ago.
Well, and it's so aimless and shambling. And there's like, it seems like it has 25 things it wants to do, forgets about all of them until like the back 30 minutes, and then decides to deal with all of them in one shot.
If you want to make a movie that's about Haddonfield,
right,
the way Jaws is about Amity Island, show the community, show how they react to this. That, I think that's great, and I don't think that's necessarily been done since maybe the original Halloween 2. And yeah, here Ivan Caps. Now he's turning us into, but Halloween Kills, where man is the real monster.
Well, I mean, and that's sort of the thing. It's like you kind of think it's going to do that, and then it half-asses that idea, where it's like man is the real monster, but no, the monster is really making us the monsters, and the monster is making us evil, and so therefore the monster is evil, and that like logic sort of encapsulates the whole film for me almost, because like so much of it is just like narrative cul-de-sacs. The more I think about it, the more I think that this was, I have to imagine the filmmakers were thinking the whole time, this is the Jaws of the Halloween franchise. Only instead of that tiger shark that came up from the Gulf Stream, it's the people drive a mentally incompetent man to suicide. Well, oh boy, it's just
Well, right out of the gate. So Halloween Kills follows up Halloween 2018 immediately. It's essentially, it's got a lot of the original Halloween 2 in it. You spend a lot of time in a hospital. You completely sideline Jamie Lee Curtis.
Right. Until the very last 20 minutes or 30 minutes.
But even then, she never leaves. Like they kind of fake you out, thinking, oh, she's gonna jam herself full of pain meds and go on the warpath. But then she doesn't. She pops her stitches and has to go back to bed.
Right. Yeah.
So they have this. The mob is out. They want to get Michael Myers. Michael Myers is out there. He busts out of the burning building and just John Wicks his way through a bunch of firefighters.
Right.
but we don't know what his motivation is, and when we finally do, in my opinion, it completely undercuts all of his menace.
This is also something that has come up in sort of our entire series on Halloween, is just that Michael Myers has no motivation. If Michael Myers has no motivation, he's a completely uninteresting character. And it's not like he's a werewolf where you can just be like, he's an animal. He's just doing animal things. He's like a human being who apparently is evil and just murders indiscriminately. But if all he's trying to do is get home, you're just kind of sitting there going, why does this matter? And
well, I think you hit on something there. I think you hit on it's Michael doesn't have any rules to him. And
right.
Like, that's the thing with a werewolf. There are rules to how a werewolf works as a monster. There's rules to how Jason works, and how Freddy works, and how Leatherface works. And like, yeah, we talked about this when we were talking about Halloween 4 and Halloween H2O. But Michael, because he's just flesh and blood, as they keep saying in this. Right. He's just a guy, and he kills. And they gave him kind of this through line of he just wants to go home. He wants to go back to his childhood home, because it seems like what set Michael off ultimately is he just really wanted his sister's room.
Yeah, and like that's but that's the problem with that, is that it's like, because you spend so much time, and because part of it is that the geography of Haddonfield isn't laid out in any like way that you can kind of understand where anyone is in relation to each other, it doesn't like land in a way where it's like, oh, of course he's killing his way home. Like,
yeah, like that's like, there's a moment where they're looking at the map and it's a straight line, but you don't even see the map. It's Lonnie figures it out in the 11th hour.
Right, and it's also after everyone has just sort of been aimlessly wandering around searching for Michael and trying to find him and kind of running into him and then not running into him and then and then thinking, oh, he's going to the hospital. No, he's not going to the hospital. Oh, he's going home. And it's like, they could have figured this out earlier if it was that obvious.
It's another movie also where it's the characters, the audience knows things that the characters don't, but it's not being played for suspense.
Right.
It's like Jamie Lee Curtis, like, he's coming for me. He's coming. We know he's not.
Right.
We know that he's not anywhere near the hospital. Whereas in Halloween 2, back in 1981, he's in the hospital pretty early on, and he's just sort of in the shadows, in the outskirts. And, in this case, it's when he gets you, he's menacing, but the rest of the time, he might as well not be in the movie.
Right. Well, and that's the problem. If you don't give him a motivation, I mean, and it works in the original movie because we actually care about Laurie and we care about her friends, and it works that you don't know. It makes it scarier that you don't know why Michael Myers is doing this. Just he's sort of a garden variety psychopath. And you can be like scared about that. But in a movie where the hunter becomes the hunted, where a group of people are saying, well, we got to go out and we got to get him. You're trying to rally a posse to get him. You have to like have something to grab onto to like actually follow the hunter hunted through line. And, it just isn't there. And what makes it more annoying here, as opposed to, say, if this movie was made in the 80s, in the 80s, I don't think there would be this much of a pretentious sheen to the whole thing, where it's like, oh, he's making monsters of us all. And it's kind of like a meta commentary about like horror movies in general and stuff. And it's like, it doesn't land. It didn't land for me.
This movie's no fun.
No. And it hates all of its characters. Every character is either an idiot or horrible, and they all die horribly, and it's just like,
I had to stop at the end of the movie and take a head count of who's still alive at the end of this movie, and we've got Jamie Lee Curtis is still alive. Will Patton is improbably alive after very much getting his head run over in Halloween 2018. The daughter's alive. Cowboy Sheriff is alive, and Lindsay Wallace, the Real Housewife, is alive.
Right.
So I don't know. and again, this is the same thing I felt after that. The problem with all of these third Halloween movies is I don't know where you go from here.
Right.
Like I don't know, and it's not even like this one had like a great ending like Halloween 4 and Halloween H2O had.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and at a certain point you're like, if there's not some sort of twist on why Michael Myers is doing it, which is obviously why they brought in the whole family angle on it, and then in the return of Michael Myers, it's like he's passing on his evil lineage to the, you know, to the next generation or whatever. If you don't have some sort of twist, either, you know, whatever, a cult has resurrected him or what have you, you're just sort of sitting here going, so we're just going to kind of do this whole thing over again. Like,
and it's doing the whole the trendy nostalgia thing. We got the whole gang back. Tommy's back, Lindsay's back, Nurse Chambers is back to die in a second continuity.
well,
Lonnie, remember Lonnie? He's back.
and ultimately it's like, it just makes everything so small. It makes the world, I mean, obviously Haddonfield is supposed to be a small town, but it makes it, the world of the film, feel so small in a way that, like, everyone being related or in knowledge of each other in a small town doesn't, in real life, doesn't feel that way. Does that make sense?
And that's the thing, it's this also, like, it feels, they've never quite pinned down like how famous is Michael Myers, because you go back to the first movie and like none of the kids like seem to, except maybe Allison, the granddaughter, all of them kind of don't know. It's kind of an urban legend. In this one, like, does Tommy Doyle go up on the talent show on Halloween every year and give that speech, or was this a special occasion?
Well, I mean, it almost feels like the movie needed to have more of a time jump between the 2018 film and this one. And it almost feels like you wanted the Tommy Doyle role to be Laurie and her to be rounding up the posse to get Michael Myers. I mean, it's sort of like cliche and kind of stupid and repetitive, but I think I'd feel something for that more.
I think Laurie needed to be the driving force of this movie, because the last movie proved her right. He's still a threat. She's the only one that's been worried about him, but it's also like he's not the boogeyman.
Right.
He didn't like disappear and was never seen again. He's been in prison. You see his mugshot on TV.
Right.
Like Tommy Doyle says, like he always wears a mask. We don't know what he looks like. Yes, you do. In this universe, podcasters talk about Michael Myers. Michael Myers probably has a Wikipedia page with his picture. It's like everyone knows who this person is. He's a guy that in this town, there's a Last Podcast on the Left episode about Michael Myers in this universe. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. It's just it just feels, it's trying to be the most realistic Halloween timeline, but it also feels so unrealistic because it's trying to be grounded, but it's also trying to make Michael Myers this massive symbolic evil.
It's trying to have it both ways, because the original film, aside from Loomis's ranting and him being sort of like stronger than most people, you don't get the impression that he's supernatural at all. In the Carpenter movie, he's very much, you get the impression he's a real person, you know. But this, it almost wants to have it both ways in some way. Because, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis's big speech about how the evil is infecting the town and this is what Michael Myers wants and this is the thing. And it's like, this is not tracking for me because this doesn't make any sense.
Every single line of dialogue in this movie would sound better coming from Donald Pleasance. Like, all of these characters are trying to be Donald. Evil dies tonight.
Yeah.
Like that's what this movie wants to be, but it's also not playing to the cheap seats. No. Like, the performances are all very grounded. Like, I think everyone's very good in it.
Yeah.
It's so aimless and the characters make the stupidest decisions.
Yes, they
Like,
do.
I like Big John and Little John. I like that in this world, someone bought the Myers house and lives in it. And yeah, they know there were murders there, and they're kind of kooky dudes that love Halloween, but it feels very realistic that it's not like this dilapidated house that no one
Right.
dares go near.
Yeah.
It's prime real estate. But at the same time, there's someone in there in their upstairs, like an adult who's covered in blood. Like they know that whoever this is not those kids fucking with them. And they go upstairs. Just leave the house. I have it in caps. Just leave the house.
Call the police. Just
No one in this movie reacts in a realistic fashion. Like in the flashbacks, he's got young Hawkins' partner and he's choking him out. And Hawkins' reaction is to shoot blindly. Only Loomis ever thought, just put one in the back of his head and be done with it, and they stopped him.
Yeah. So many baffling decisions. It's not baffling because it's not like the movie is like this confounding mess. It feels like a Halloween sequel. There's nothing.
Yeah,
like...
it's not Cats. It still feels it feels of a piece with this franchise, but it is 40 years of this franchise. And all the characters still have to make the same cliched, stupid decisions just to keep the plot going and make Michael Myers feel like an active threat.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as we've sort of, that's the problem, and that's the problem with Michael Myers as a continuing character in like a serialized fashion is if you got to give him something, you got to give him something more. It's like you say, there's like rules to Jason, and they might mix up the formula. They might mix up how Jason gets to start killing people or how he gets awakened or whatever. But there are rules and you can follow it and you can sort of, you understand it. And it's like, you can't have it both ways with these types with your movie monsters. You got to either be, you just have to have them a concrete thing and somebody can point to and be like, this is how we get him. This is what his deal is. And this is how we kill him.
And they came like really close to that. That should have been Laurie that figured that out. Give her something active to do. She figures out that like, oh, he's going from here to here to here. There is a pattern.
Right.
He's going home.
He's going home. But
yeah.
But again, and the problem is what's this like? Somebody needs to say what the significance of home is for Michael Myers outside of he killed his sister there,
and he likes to look at himself in the window,
right? And it's like somebody, and I mean, this is if you had Loomis, you could give he could give this exposition, but somebody needed to explain why home was important, whatever it was. Even if it's like, oh, he is an apex predator and apex predators always go to their, their home base or what, I don't care, whatever it is.
It's like, it's imagine like this is honestly too out there for this what this movie wants to be. But like, what if it is like kind of ultimately like a turf war? That what they realize is we're defending Haddonfield, but this is Michael Myers' territory too. He thinks we're the encroaching threat. He is an apex predator. So like, what if the solution at the end is, oh yeah, it is his turf. He sits in that house and he'll come out now and then, and you better get out of the way. And then the sequel to Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends, is like 3 years later, and it's what is life in like the kingdom of Michael Myers. Like,
yeah. Or it's just, or Michael Myers is just this thing like Godzilla in the Godzilla movies where it's just, we have to just deal with him, or a hurricane it's like, or something like that. Yeah.
He's Boo Radley, but if Boo Radley did indeed like run out every now and then and just like kill people,
right.
But don't go into the Myers house. He's up there, leave him alone. That just seems, you can't have him be just a completely, he can't be the shark from Jaws.
No. Well, and that's again, either make him supernatural if you need it, or or give him something to grab onto, because I was just mostly confused for most of this movie, just being like, why is he killing these people? I mean, and in a way that the first movie you could take that thought for the first movie, but it doesn't work that way because you're so invested in the characters, and it's not just this indiscriminate killing, because there's the tension and the mood of the original Halloween is so strong that it kind of negates those questions.
And speaking of supernatural, it can't go unaddressed. Silver Shamrock masks all over this movie, all over the last movie, which begs the question: is this a universe where Season of the Witch is a movie, or is this a universe where Silver Shamrock exists?
See, and if Halloween Ends reveals that Silver Shamrock is behind it all, I will be bowing down to all three of these movies, saying we are not worthy. Because
who is your dream? Who's your dream? Let's just assume that's what's going to happen, because I mean, you're printing money bringing back Season of the Witch. Who's your dream casting for Conal Cochran?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me think on that. Do you have your one?
Well, we can't do Malcolm McDowell because he's already been Loomis. Do we cast him a little younger? Do we go like a Fassbender sort of thing?
You could do that. You know what? Ewan McGregor, like in Birds of Prey, like, him just sort of just going crazy.
Yeah, just really like out there, Conal Cochran.
Yeah.
And then like maybe at some point you reveal like he has like a Sith Lord thing where you reveal he is like a 1,000-year-old warlock or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I would pay a lot of money to see that movie.
Yeah. That's I don't know, it's the movie's like afraid to kind of be out there a little bit. Like the kills are all brutal, but you get really like numb to them. You get like Michael loves head trauma. He's gonna bop your head against things like crazy, but there's nothing creative about any of them. Like he does like the thing where he poses the bodies, but I don't know. There's just like he's just like kind of he'll kill you like a guy in the bar that got too drunk, just slamming you into things. It's like I like the actor that plays him. I like the older guy, James Jude Courtney. He's great. I think like the physicality is really good, but it's just
I mean, he's just sort of a tank. I mean, he just kind of goes in, and kills whatever's sort of in front of him. It's not even, he's not doing this like stalking the babysitters thing, that we're sort of used to.
Yeah, there's not a lot of Michael like, and they did this in the Halloween 2018, which I liked. Is there are scenes where you kind of see him in the background, like at the gas station and stuff, and there's none of that in this. He feels way more like the Rob Zombie Michael Myers in this.
Yeah. I mean, he just feels like just this unstoppable force, which I mean, I think they were going for. It just doesn't. It's not like the aliens in Alien where you're just, where they do feel like an unstoppable force, but that's because they're just so unknowable as like, you can't empathize.
And even then, they have rules,
right?
Like there's do's and don'ts with the aliens,
right? Exactly.
And like there's like little moments where you get a sense of that like weird like stunted child Michael Myers, like when he's stabbing Lenny Clark with all the knives,
right?
Like that scene. It's he just like it almost like he's like trying them out to see if there's one that he likes. Like I like that moment because he has like there's like something about his body language where he like stabs and then kind of looks at the body and then gets another knife, stabs, kind of looks at the body like okay.
Try another one.
Yeah. Like he's not like Michael is a character that does react and has like personality and has almost like a playful side,
right?
And you don't see much of that in this one, and I wish you did. I wish they latched on to the stuff for like the putting on the ghost costume with the glasses from the original. Like But this is a movie. This is a movie that's trying to like. It's too busy wanting to say something and mean something.
And something about human nature and following people. I mean, like that stuff with the other escapee.
Oh, no.
I like it was just. It just felt so pointless. I was like, why is this happening? Like,
and they could have leaned into it more, like maybe make it more ambiguous. If Michael really is out there, did he get out of the
Right.
house? Is the
Right.
crowd, is the mob like just like there is something I like about Anthony Michael Hall's performance as Tommy Doyle, where you get the sense this is a guy that's just been waiting for an opportunity to like get his bat and lead the mob. Like
Oh
there's
yeah.
you get the sense this guy, he's like a little too amped for this to be happening, and maybe lean into that, make him more
Right.
like just a kind of unhinged guy. Like he's been as affected by this as Laurie has, but he's way less smart about it, and he's getting people killed.
Right, and I mean, and I think that mob needs to be causing wanton destruction throughout the movie, leading up to the guy killing himself, and sort of getting this sort of, by the time you get to the hospital, there's this full head of steam behind sort of the mob,
as opposed to like the mob just kind of appears out of nowhere at the hospital.
Yeah,
and every time the movie gets to the point where it's going to hold the mob accountable, like there's these lines like, he's turning us into monsters, or Judy Greer, who's kind of the voice of reason through most of the movie, still has a line where she's like, you got an innocent man killed, and then she adds like, well, none of us are innocent.
Yeah, it's so weird. I don't understand
it. And the whole thing, the movie was filmed before this, but it all takes kind of it has a weird uncomfortable feeling post January 6th. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if that was intentional, but it's like it makes you feel like icky in the wrong way.
Yeah, it's so bizarre because since I didn't watch this until like 2 days ago. I sort of saw a lot of the discourse popping up on Twitter, and now I don't. When it first came out, now I don't really remember what all that was. But I don't know why everyone was like, why there was so much discourse about this. This seems like such a forgettable movie at the end of the day.
Yeah, I honestly haven't read a lot of discourse. Like, I know that there's people that like elements of it, and there are good parts of it, and like up to a point, it's a really good looking movie.
Oh yeah.
And so like the final sequence where suddenly it looks like they shot Michael in like a black box theater.
Yeah.
And it like all the massacre stuff feels like reshoots, but I don't think it was.
Yeah.
But like, there's some great stuff. Like all the flashback stuff looks great. They nailed the look of everything. They got a different younger guy to play Michael. That's an actor playing Loomis, by the way.
No, I know. I saw that, and that's like all makeup and stuff.
He's the art director. His name's Tom Jones Jr., and they just dubbed his voice. And I was like, when I found that, I was like, oh my god, they nailed it. They did that's incredible, because I assumed it was a deep fake young,
I did too,
Cushing thing, but. And this movie made me miss Donald Pleasance more than any of the other non-Donald Pleasance movies, because this is the movie he should have been alive for, because he would have made this, like, when you have the mob elements in like Halloween 4 when he's like, you don't have a police force, like it works because he sells it, because it's ridiculous, but like he's playing it just real enough, and he's not like phoning it in at all. And you don't have that here because, no one's phoning it in, but everyone's playing it very real.
Yeah.
Almost like the difference between Jamie Lee Curtis very deftly, very well delivered line of like, this is Michael's masterpiece, versus this is Michael's masterpiece. His masterpiece. You are the Duke. You are the number one.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And it needed less of sort of that, improv feel, like improv mumblecore feel to it, and more more
Yeah,
playing to the
because
cheap seats.
also like the improv thing and doesn't work when every like featured extra feels like a weird character.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
there's the bartender and the couple, the nurse and doctor couple.
Yes.
It's like and everyone at that bar at the talent show
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
another public domain world too. No one dressed up like whatever was topical in 2018.
Right.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
no one dressed as Donald Trump, that like for Halloween that year. Everyone is public domain.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Or Silver Shamrock.
Yes, which maybe if it's based off the movie, it's
Right.
not public domain. But
That's
if
right.
in this universe, it's like in Halloween 3, where every kid knows you can pair you can pair a skull, a witch, or a pumpkin with any costume.
That's right.
It's just a movie that just feels like a lot of half measures.
Yeah.
And anytime it seems like it wants to go in an interesting direction, it kind of gets distracted with something else.
Yeah, it's like, this is actually going to be about the town of Haddonfield and how it works. Well, we kind of need to circle back to Jamie Lee Curtis and her family and see how everyone's doing there. And then, well, let's see what Michael's up to. Oh, he's killing people. Okay, now we're going to see like what's happening with the Haddonfield folks. And
Yeah. And Jamie Lee Curtis doesn't eat. At some point, the movie's just like, we're going to give her a romantic backstory with Hawkins.
Out of nowhere, yeah.
Like, I was trying to remember if this was something that was touched upon in the first movie or what.
I was going to ask you. I was like, I don't remember anything about
I don't
this in the
remember it
first
at all.
movie.
Like, I like Will Patton. I always like Will Patton in a movie. He's a fun guy. He's a good character actor. But it's just like, did we need to bring this dude back from the dead just to have? He's just there to give Laurie someone to talk to.
Yeah.
Because at some point, her granddaughter Allison goes off with baby Adam Driver,
right. Yeah,
and they're both dressed like Bonnie and Clyde the whole movie, and never at any point do they reference it. Like right before they go into the Myers house, they should have looked at each other and been like Bonnie and Clyde, and then just like like on 3.
Yeah. I don't know. There's just so much about it that it just felt, and also, and as we said, it just felt mean spirited. There just was so much. The movie just kind of hated its characters.
Well, it's the same trend that I hate in these nostalgia trip movies where we, the audience, the filmmakers, hold this stuff in a near reverential level, but for some reason in the narrative, our beloved characters are all like miserable burnout failures whose lives just fell apart right after the events. It's like, is there anyone in any of these characters that have come back where their life is going okay? Like, I haven't seen Ghostbusters Afterlife, but it seems like they all fell out of touch and in a way that seems wildly out of character. Luke Skywalker lives on a rock and molests manatees. Han Solo's son is a serial killer and his marriage fell apart. Laurie lives in a shack and never got over what happened in 1978.
Right.
It's kind of depressing.
Yeah.
Like whatever exists in our heads or in fan fiction is more fun than seeing these characters that we love just kind of get degraded.
No. Well, I mean, I will say, I think part of for me, I think part of what Star Wars, the themes of Star Wars is sort of the next generation fixing the problems of the previous generation. And for me, that through line, at least for the first 2 of the sequel trilogy, works for me. I know it doesn't work for a lot of people, and I know it doesn't work for you, but it works for me.
Well, I mean, look, gang. You think we got a lot to talk about with these 4 Halloween movies? Just wait until our Star Wars trilogy of Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, and The Rise of Skywalker. The 3 R's, the reading, writing, arithmetic of the Star Wars franchise, of the Skywalker saga. No, well, my problem with that with Star Wars is that I have no problem with like, the new generation coming in and fixing the problems of the old one, but it's like, it's just, there's such a jump. And in Star
Yeah.
Wars, kind of like this, it feels really cynical in that like Return of the Jedi ends and like we stopped the Emperor, we stopped the Empire, we defeated space fascism. Literally the next movie, if you're watching them in order, space fascism's back. It doesn't seem to have missed a beat. And I think what I wanted was a how. Like there should have like there should have been a movie. But I don't know, and this doesn't apply to, this doesn't work with Halloween, except for I think the whole conceit of of these new Halloween movies, which is 5 seconds after the end of the original Halloween, Michael Myers was apprehended.
Right.
Kind of went surprisingly quietly, all things considered.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I'm with you. I think the turning Laurie Strode into Sarah Connor, I think, is a strange choice.
And I think it's also, the problem is if they're gonna do that with Laurie, they don't go far enough. There's a fan theory out there, because in the first movie, in Halloween 2018, you see her sitting outside the prison when the bus is leaving to transfer the prisoners. There's a theory that Laurie caused the bus crash. She let Michael out. You could double down on that. Maybe she did. Maybe she says in that movie, like, I've been waiting for him to get out so I could kill him. Like, what if everyone in this movie's like, oh no, this is my fault. Oh no, this is my fault.
What if it is? Loomis shoot.
And what if Laurie is at the end like, it's my fault.
It's actually my fault. I let him go.
And she reveals that as Michael Myers is murdering her daughter. You know?
Yeah.
Like, that's that. I don't want to do a podcast where it's just what I would have done. But that's what I would have done.
Well, it's I don't know. It needed something. It needed some sort of twist or some sort of revelation that just made it not just a generic Halloween sequel.
If Michael's turned them into monsters, they have to be turned into monsters,
right?
Because he's not. Michael isn't the Emperor. He's not Palpatine. He's not seeing them all do this and going, good.
Yeah, no.
He doesn't give a fuck. He's just walking around.
And how would he know anyway? And like, he doesn't care. He just sort of walks in a direction and kills anything in his way. I mean, at least that's the way he's presented here.
Like, if you run away fast enough from Michael Myers, he will get bored and go do something else. It's not Jason. It's not Freddy. Like, Freddy isn't going to stop because you can't stop him. You have to fall asleep. You can't stop Leatherface because Leatherface is hungry. Leatherface just wants to know why people keep showing up at his house.
But no, it's just, it needed something. And in my mind, and I don't have the affection for the Halloween sequels that you do. But in my mind, there's really not that big of a difference between this and the Return of Michael Myers.
I agree.
The Return of Michael Myers has a better ending.
Yeah, I think it has a better ending and a better lead character.
Right. And
you have someone to latch on to.
Right,
you have
exactly.
Crazy Loomis, who's your connective tissue, and you have Danielle Harris, who you care about.
Right.
And she's like, gives a great performance, and you care about this little girl. I don't give a shit about anyone in this movie.
No. Yeah.
Like, I bummed that they killed Judy Greer, which I assume is her punishment for getting a movie where she's allowed to do stuff.
Yeah.
No, that's the thing. I don't have an affection for the Halloween sequels. I find them fascinating because there's so many retcons and so many continuities. Like, I have an affection for the Jason movies because it's basically like eating a bunch of Reese's peanut butter cups. They're not good, but they're so digestible and fun. And like, when we talk, I guarantee you, when we talk about Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D, we aren't going to have as much to say as we've had about any of these movies, because that movie's just like, it's a slasher movie. It's in 3D. Like, it's Jason gets his mask. It's like, it's as cliche as possible, and they throw things at the camera, and a good time is had by all.
Yeah, it has no pretensions about what it's doing or why it's doing it. It's just we're going to try and do the most inventive makeup effects we can think of, and kills, and here are some boobs, and that's the end of the story. It's just-
Yeah, it's so weird how many false starts this franchise has had.
yeah,
and
yeah,
and I mean, again, I think the reason I keep coming back to it is I'm genuinely interested every time they come back to Michael Myers to see, have they cracked the code, have they figured out something they can do with him that isn't completely ludicrous and isn't reliant on the family connection that a lot of fans seem to dislike, even though I would argue it it was like the thing that kept the franchise buoyant for 15 to 20
right,
years.
yeah. I mean, and so I mean, let's talk about this as part of, as in terms of a part three, right? Because I mean, this is the part of, our podcast is about part threes, and
How
so this is sort of an
how
interesting.
dare
What?
you? How dare you condescend to me like that, sir? Keeping us on task like that.
Well,
Um,
know,
evil dies tonight, Will.
God damn.
Evil dies
Evil
tonight.
dies tonight. Okay. So, but okay, so this is a part three, and so this is different than kind of, well, it's actually, I mean, it's very similar to the Return of Michael Myers, because this isn't like the end of a trilogy. This is supposed to sort of move us into the next movie as well. So, what do you think as like a part three of Halloween, of the Halloween saga?
I don't know. It's such a continuation of Halloween 2018, and it doesn't really add anything new to the story. We're right back where we were at the end. Like, he's out there, and Laurie's gonna try to get him. Laurie, like, yeah, I don't know where they go, and I will say now, I think Halloween Ends is gonna feel more like a part three, because it
Right.
is gonna be the end of a trilogy, and when that comes out, I'm sure we will get around to it. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't feel like, I honestly come out of this one feeling like they have less of an idea of what they want this version of the Halloween franchise to be.
Yeah, I agree, and it's just partly because this one just felt so meandering and aimless, and like, and because when this movie was announced, it was announced with a Halloween Ends as well, wasn't it? It was
Yeah.
announced as, so you'd think that they'd have some sort of direction they were going, that they were like, this is where we're headed, and you'd think it'd be a
Yeah.
little stronger than just kind of this meandering nonsense.
Yeah, and it's, well, what's weird is that I think they're like, basically before COVID, I think they were planning to film them back to back, but they're not going to be like narratively back to back, because I think they're supposed to, it's going to be like Halloween Ends jumps ahead to present day.
Okay.
Like, it's like they said, they were saying, like, I think I read an interview this, they're gonna, like, COVID will be like addressed, like they'll have come out of a pandemic in this movie. The face Will's making, gang, he's turned into a Muppet. He's disappointed Kermit.
I don't know. That sounds so. Well, I mean, it fits with sort of the way that these other two movies have been, but it just sounds so pretentious and like annoying in a slasher movie. And it's just, to what end? What does it buy you? I don't know. What does it buy you?
I mean, I'm always going, I want to be surprised. Every time I go to a movie like this, a reboot or a sequel, I want to be proven wrong. I want to go in and have Rise of the Planet of the Apes, where
Yeah.
I think it's going to be an absolute disaster, and it turns out to be like probably the best movie in the franchise. I want that to happen. I want them to swing for the fences. I want, there is a way to do an interesting version of Halloween.
Right.
I don't really know what it is, and I think you'd have to break from the slasher movie norms.
Yeah.
And if you take the other three Halloween threes, you have Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, which is trying to abandon everything. We're going to turn this franchise,
Halloween.
except the concept of Halloween, the holiday. We are going to turn the franchise into something completely different. And obviously people push back on that. You have Halloween 4 it's The Force Awakens. We're going to reboot with what we've still got. We're going to bring back Michael Myers, and we're going to introduce a new set of characters and take the franchise in a new direction. Obviously, they didn't do that, but that's what they did. And then you have Halloween H2O, which is an end movie. It's not constructed to have a sequel. It's let's do a third movie where we give Laurie Strode the resolution she never got prior to this. Right. And I think that one works really well as the final movie in a trilogy. You can watch Halloween, Halloween 2, and Halloween H2O, and it feels like a complete arc for Laurie Strode.
Yeah.
And then you have these ones, Halloween, Halloween, Halloween Kills. And it's not a trilogy. It's not meant to be a trilogy. It's meant to be the original Halloween and then a new trilogy following it up.
Right.
This movie feels like what everyone complains The Last Jedi is. Which is just like everyone's like, oh, The Last Jedi hates Star Wars. The Last Jedi, it hates all its characters, and it turns, and it's let the past die. And it's like, and no, that's not the problem with The Last Jedi. That's not my problem with The Last Jedi. But that is, I think, the problem with Halloween Kills.
Right. Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's a very astute point. It feels like it doesn't, for lack of a better term, respect the franchise in a way. At least respect it in a way to do something creatively with it.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it seems like it respects the franchise, but it doesn't have the confidence to do anything different. It's more interested in constantly undercutting all the things that came before. They have a whole scene again where they have to talk about the fucking doctor from the last movie. It's like, it was his obsession to see you and Michael fight, not Michael's. Michael doesn't care about you.
Right.
You have no part in this, Ray / Laurie.
Yeah. And again, I get it. Like the brother sister thing is like a little convenient and a little weird, but it gets you from a point A to point B in a very simple fashion. That this movie is just struggling to find that.
Yeah. And I would argue, just from a narrative standpoint, your antagonist trying to get to your protagonist and killing everyone in between is more compelling than your antagonist trying to get to a location and killing everyone on his way there, and your protagonist off doing fuck all.
Whatever, yeah. Or,
yes,
sleeping.
that makes Michael more mysterious, and it's scarier when he doesn't have a motivation, but it also gives you a lot less gas for storytelling.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, unless you're going to do something really radical with him, and I can't imagine what that would be in a satisfying way. I mean,
well, we nailed it. It's either The Kingdom of Michael Myers, Haddonfield with Michael Myers as the mayor,
right?
Or alternatively, it's Ewan McGregor as Connell Cochran.
And it's Silver Shamrock has been controlling Michael Myers this whole time to unleash the apocalypse.
You can retcon it. Those podcasters, they weren't podcasters. They worked for Silver Shamrock. He takes the mask out and he says, "You can feel its power."
That's right.
There's a fucking Stonehenge chip in that. Like, what if the end of this movie was he grabs his head and it melts into snakes, and then Connell Cochran comes out like Nick Fury? Oh, and just says happy Halloween. Oh, that's a movie. That's a fucking movie.
I would pay so much money to see the fans' reaction.
They would cheer. I would watch the videos of that like I do the reaction to Avengers Endgame videos.
Yeah.
So, here we are. Which of the 4 Halloween 3s is your favorite?
I'm going to have to go with the actual Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, just because it is so cuckoo bananas. And so many of the Halloween sequels, I'm including Halloween Kills in this, just feels so similar and so the same. And I think the Twilight Zone esque nature of Halloween 3 Season of the Witch is is fun.
I think I'm with you on that. I would argue that like the best third movie would be Halloween H2O. Like that's the one that just feels it's a brisk 85 minutes, which you know I love. I'm a busy man. I like to get in and get out. That movie doesn't waste any time, and it moves. And it has a great button on the end that you don't need sequels. It's not a cliffhanger. It's done. She gets her resolution there. But yeah, I think what we want with Halloween as a franchise, swing for the fences, even if it means, let the past die. Melt it with snakes if you have to. Like I will, for all its flaws, if I'm popping one in to watch in an evening, I'm watching Halloween 3.
It's a shambling, weird thing, but by the time it goes crazy, you're like, this is amazing. I mean, that's how I felt the first time I saw that movie. I was like, how have I never seen this before? This is incredible.
I do think this was an interesting primer into the concept of part 3s. And like, because you've got cliffhanger, you've got one that doesn't really feel like anything, you've got the complete gear shift, and then you have the one that does feel like the end of a trilogy. Halloween gives you a nice little sampler. And we're going to get a lot of different movies like that as we go down the rabbit hole.
Yes, as we move through the part 3s.
Yes. And I think coming up, we're deep in we're deep in Los Angeles winter, which feels like autumn. So that's why we've been doing Halloween for 4 weeks. But I think we're next up we're going to Detroit.
We're going to old Detroit for RoboCop 3.
We are going to break ground on New Delta City with RoboCop 3, directed from the director of Night of the Creeps.
Yep, and Monster Squad.
Yep,
and co-writer of the Predator.
Yep. And we both have been dragging our heels on Ghostbusters. We'll get around to it.
It will happen. We'll make it happen.
I think after Halloween Kills, we need a little fun, a little palate cleanser. I don't want to revisit my sad, bloated, alcoholic, like pop culture aunts and uncles of my youth. I just want to see a guy who sort of looks like Peter Weller fly around.
And that's kind of, don't we all want that some days?
I'm excited. I feel like we've rounded a corner. We've learned a little bit about ourselves. We've learned a little bit about audio recording and how we're not great at it, but we're learning.
We're learning.
Well, until next time, we will see you all. I am Sam. Thank you all for listening. And as I've said many times, find friends to talk about bullshit with, because it's the best way to end the day. And it's an absolute delight in these trying times to talk with you, Will, about the dumbest movies possible sometimes.
Well, yes, absolutely. I am on board, always happy to talk about dumb movies, because my wife doesn't want to hear me talk about dumb movies.
I've tried explaining these movies to Elise, and the best I've gotten so far is she's open to the concept of Conan the Barbarian, but there is no third Conan the Barbarian, so that doesn't help us. Well, evil died tonight.
It certainly did.
So until next time, thank you all for listening. Follow us on Twitter at Podcast Part 3. That's the number 3. We will, at some point in the near future, have a little website set up. We are not worthy of a Patreon yet, so don't ask. And any thoughts you got? Comments, movie suggestions, shout them out. We're all ears. We love to chit chat about this sort of thing. And thank you for listening.
Yeah. Adios. Need to figure out our outro here.
Evil dies tonight.
Evil dies tonight.
2 legs. Goodbye, Will.
Goodbye, Sam.